Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty fascinating, but maybe a little bit daunting. Superintelligence strategy.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It is, and it's something we should all be thinking about. And today we're going to be looking at a report called Superintelligence Strategy, expert version.
Okay.
And it's by Dan HENDRYCKS, Eric SCHMIDT, and ALEXANDR WANG. Pretty big names in the tech world, right? So are you ready to dive in?
I'm fascinated to see what they have to say about this.
Yeah, me too. And, this report really doesn't hold back.
Right.
It kind of jumps right into the deep end, comparing AI to things like nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons.
In terms of national security.
Yeah, like in terms of the impact it could have. Yeah. And it really makes you stop and think, right? Like we're not just talking about, some cool new technology.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. It really is something else. And one of the things that really struck me in the report is this idea that just like, back in the Cold War, nations had to develop nuclear strategies.
Right.
Now we need to be thinking about superintelligence strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like a new arms race, but with intelligence itself.
It's a whole new kind of arms race. And they really emphasize like how this could shift the balance of power.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Globally, right? So like imagine a world where the nation with the most advanced AI kind of has a strategic monopoly. And they're dictating global affairs. That's a pretty big.
Yeah, that's a pretty huge power shift, right? Like whoever controls the most powerful AI could potentially control everything else.
It's pretty wild to think about, and it goes even deeper. Like they talk about how, AI-powered economies could just absolutely dwarf other.
Oh, for sure. Like making AI chips like the new currency of power.
Yeah, like the new oil or the new gold or something like that.
It's almost like we're entering a new era of like digital colonialism.
Yeah. It's a scary thought for sure. And then on top of that, you've got the potential for AI super weapons, which is just a whole other can of worms.
Right. Like how do you even begin to defend against something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the report actually uses this really, I guess, powerful analogy to kind of drive home this point about potential AI dominance.
I'm curious, what is it?
They compare it to the conquistadors' advantage over the Aztecs.
Wow, okay.
Which is a pretty...
Yeah, that's a pretty stark comparison.
Stark comparison, right. It's like, you've got...
Totally outmatched.
One side with this just massive technological advantage.
It's like they're playing a different game entirely.
And the other side's just completely outmatched. It's a little unnerving to think about it that way. But
definitely unsettling.
Yeah, unsettling for sure. But the report does offer, some strategies for managing these risks.
Okay.
And one of the most interesting concepts they bring up is this idea of Mutual Assured AI Malfunction, or MAIM.
MAIM.
MAIM. It's like MAID.
Okay, I remember MAID.
Right, mutually assured destruction, but for AI.
Gotcha. So it's like the AI equivalent of nuclear deterrence.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, interesting. How does that work?
So basically the idea is that if one nation tries to dominate with AI,
right,
the others might resort to sabotage to avoid, being left behind or even destroyed.
Right.
So it's like, think covert cyber attacks on research facilities, disrupting development, maybe even, introducing subtle flaws into the AI code itself.
So it's like a high-stakes game of chicken, but with potentially catastrophic consequences if someone miscalculates.
Yeah, exactly. And the report actually suggests that MAIM is kind of already becoming the default.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just so easy to spy on and sabotage AI projects through cyber attacks.
So we're already in this kind of precarious situation without even realizing it.
Potentially, yeah. And it's kind of scary to think about, right? So if this MAIM regime is already in play, like how do we prevent it from spiraling out of control?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah. It is, and the report offers a few key steps.
Okay.
The first one is that nations need to be super clear about what actions would be considered an escalation.
Okay, so like what types of cyber attacks would be considered crossing the line?
Exactly, like specific types of cyber attacks on AI projects. It's kind of like setting some clear boundaries.
So no accidental escalation, no misunderstandings that could trigger an AI arms race.
Right, exactly. That's the idea. And then second, strategically placing AI development facilities away from population centers.
Okay, that makes sense. So that if things do escalate, we minimize collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly. It's about protecting civilians. And then the third recommendation is a little bit more mind-bending.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So they're saying we should be using AI itself to monitor AI.
So AI watching over AI.
Yeah, like think of AI-assisted inspections to verify that nations aren't secretly building destabilizing AI systems.
It's like a technological checks and balances system.
Yeah, it's like this weird recursive loop almost, right?
Right, it's like using technology to monitor and potentially control itself.
It's kind of like a new era of arms control, but instead of nukes, we're dealing with algorithms and data.
And instead of inspectors with clipboards, we have AI systems monitoring each other.
Exactly. It's a pretty wild concept to wrap your head around, but...
It's kind of brilliant when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense in a way, right? But there's another layer to all of this that we need to consider.
Okay, what's that?
It's not just about nations anymore. The report also raises the possibility of AI terrorism.
AI terrorism, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. It does sound pretty far out there, but they make a pretty compelling case.
Okay, I'm listening. How would that even work?
Well, they argue that AI is actually lowering the barrier for terrorists to launch sophisticated attacks. Right, so they could potentially do things that were once only possible for nation states.
Okay, that's pretty concerning. What kind of attacks are we talking about?
Well, the report focuses on two main areas.
Okay.
Bioterrorism and cyber attacks.
Bioterrorism, oh my gosh.
So imagine terrorists using AI to, design deadly pathogens.
Oh, wow.
Making bioweapons much easier to create and deploy.
That's terrifying.
It is. It's really scary. Or, AI could be used to automate the hacking of critical infrastructure.
Right.
Giving terrorists the power to just cripple entire systems.
So we're talking about potentially catastrophic scenarios like a virus engineered to be highly contagious and deadly.
Yeah.
Or a coordinated attack that shuts down a country's power grid or financial systems.
Exactly. And what makes this even more frightening is what the report calls the offense-dominant nature of AI in these areas.
Offense-dominant meaning?
It's so much easier to create a new virus or exploit a system than it is to defend against it.
Right. It's like the bad guys have a distinct advantage thanks to AI.
Unfortunately, yeah, that seems to be the case.
Okay, so what can we do about it?
Well, the report doesn't just leave us hanging. It actually offers some ideas for combating AI terrorism.
Okay, good. I was getting worried.
And it really boils down to this. Treating AI chips like enriched uranium.
AI chips like enriched uranium. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one to me.
Yeah, so think about it, right? Controlling access to advanced AI chips is absolutely key to preventing AI terrorism.
Okay.
Just like nations work to control the spread of nuclear materials in the 20th century.
Right.
We need to do the same with these powerful AI chips.
So we need to prevent these chips from falling into the wrong hands.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do you realistically track something as small and portable as a chip on a global scale?
That's a really good question, and the report actually proposes a three-pronged strategy.
Okay, lay it on me.
Compute security, information security, and AI security.
All right, let's break those down one by one.
Yeah, let's do it. So first up, compute security.
Compute security.
This is all about knowing where all the powerful AI chips are and preventing them from being smuggled to rogue actors.
Right, so like stricter export controls, on-site inspections to track chips.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even AI chips with built-in geolocation that can disable themselves if they're moved to an unauthorized location.
It's almost like giving these chips a self-destruct button.
That's pretty wild.
I know, right? It's about making these chips traceable and controllable, even if they do fall into the wrong hands.
So securing the hardware is just one piece of the puzzle, right? What about the information itself? The blueprints for these powerful AI systems?
You're absolutely right, and that's where information security comes in.
Information security.
Yeah, so this is about protecting sensitive AI research and the model weights that determine an AI's capabilities.
Right, so it's like you guarding the blueprints for building powerful AI systems.
Exactly.
We need to prevent those blueprints from being leaked or stolen.
Right, because once that information is out there, there's no putting it back in the bottle.
And it could be used to create all sorts of dangerous AI applications.
Exactly, and that brings us to the final prong of the strategy, AI security.
AI security. So we're not just securing the chips and the information, but the AI itself.
Exactly. We're talking about building safeguards into the AI models themselves, making them resistant to hacking or ensuring that they can't be easily repurposed for, tasks they weren't designed for.
So it's like installing a moral compass in these AI systems, making sure they can't be easily twisted to do evil.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But how do you even begin to build in those kinds of safeguards?
Right. That's a tough one.
It's a really complex challenge, and It involves creating constraints and safety mechanisms within the AI's design itself.
It's a rapidly evolving field for sure.
Yeah, and it's something that we need to be staying ahead of the curve on because, all of this sounds very defensive.
Yeah,
we're just trying to prevent the worst case scenarios.
Right.
But the report acknowledges that, nations can't just play defense.
They need to play offense too.
They need to embrace AI to stay competitive in this new world order.
It's a balancing act, preventing AI from becoming a weapon while simultaneously using it to strengthen our own position.
Exactly. It's this really delicate balance. And, I think that's a good place to pick up in part 2.
I agree. We've laid the groundwork exploring the potential threats and the strategies to manage them.
Right.
But now we need to delve into how nations can leverage AI responsibly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about that in part 2.
One thing that really kind of stuck with me from this report is how it really reframes our understanding of what even counts as a weapon in this new age.
Okay. Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, typically we think of weapons as tangible things, right?
Yeah.
Guns, bombs, missiles.
Right.
But in the age of AI, the most dangerous weapons might actually be intangible stuff.
Okay.
Like algorithms, data, even ideas.
So like the weaponization of information itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really raises all sorts of new challenges for national security.
Right. Like how do you even defend against a weapon that you can't even see?
Yeah, that's like trying to fight a ghost.
Right. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but it can still really mess things up.
Absolutely. And that's why the report puts so much emphasis on developing what they call cognitive defenses.
Cognitive defenses? So what does that even look like? I'm having trouble picturing that.
Yeah, it's about building up resilience to things like misinformation, propaganda, all those kinds of cognitive warfare tactics that AI could be used for.
So it's not just about protecting our physical infrastructure, but protecting our minds as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And that involves, things like critical thinking skills, being aware of our own biases, learning how to tell the difference between reliable and unreliable information.
Right, because so much of our lives is online these days. So it's we all need to become more discerning, more skeptical.
Skepticism is a good starting point, yeah. But it's also about cultivating digital literacy.
Yeah.
Understanding, how AI works, how it can be used to manipulate us.
Right, we need to be able to see through the smoke and mirrors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just about national security anymore. It's about personal security in this, digital age.
Right, and that makes me think about, education. How do we prepare future generations for a world where AI is everywhere?
Yeah, the report talks a lot about that. They say we need to, totally rethink our education systems.
Okay.
To focus on those skills that'll be valuable in an AI-driven economy.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? What kind of skills?
Critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, all those things that AI can't easily replicate.
So we're not just teaching kids how to code anymore. We're teaching them how to think for themselves, how to be creative, how to work together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to foster this sense of adaptability and lifelong learning.
Because in the age of AI, the only constant is change.
Yeah. It's not enough to prepare for the future. You got to be prepared to constantly adapt to the future.
That feels a little daunting, to be honest.
It is a challenge for sure, but it's also an opportunity, to really shake things up in education.
Okay.
We can move away from rote memorization and towards a more dynamic and engaging learning experience.
Right. And in a world where, AI can process information so much faster than any human, the value of human intelligence lies in our ability to think critically and solve problems creatively and, connect with each other on an emotional level.
Absolutely. And nurturing those qualities, that's what's essential if we want to leverage AI to actually make our lives in the world better.
Okay, so we've talked about cognitive defenses, digital literacy education. What else?
Well, another key strategy that the report recommends is fostering a culture of responsible innovation when it comes to AI.
Okay, responsible innovation. So what does that look like?
It's about embedding ethical considerations into every single stage of AI development.
So from the very beginning all the way to, deployment and ongoing monitoring.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's not just about building AI that works. It's about building AI that works ethically and responsibly.
Okay, so we're talking about things like transparency in AI decision-making, addressing bias in algorithms, really thinking through those potential societal impacts before you unleash these technologies on the world. Exactly.
It's a social and cultural challenge just as much as it is a technical one.
Right. It's we need a shift in mindset, not just in technology.
Yeah, we got to move away from seeing AI as just a tool and recognize, the huge implications it has for our values, our ethics, even our humanity.
It's a reflection of ourselves.
Yeah.
The choices we make about how we develop and use AI, they're going to shape the kind of world we create.
Absolutely. And that's why the report stresses the importance of these open and honest conversations about the future of AI.
Right.
And not just among experts, but involving the public as well.
Yeah, it's a conversation for everyone.
Exactly, because AI is going to impact all of us, so we all deserve to have a say in how it's developed and used.
Otherwise, it's like we become passive consumers in this world that's increasingly controlled by algorithms.
Right, we give up our agency and just kind of accept whatever AI technology is handed to us.
And that brings us back to that idea of human oversight. Like, how do we make sure that humans are still in control even as AI gets more and more powerful?
Yeah, and the report offers a few different approaches to this.
Okay.
One is designing AI systems with explainability in mind.
Okay, so no more black boxes. We need to be able to understand how these systems are making decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, and we need to establish those lines of accountability.
Right.
Like, if an AI system makes a bad decision, who's responsible for that?
We can't just say, oh, well, the algorithm did it.
Right. Someone needs to be held accountable, whether that means creating new regulatory bodies to oversee AI development or coming up with legal frameworks to define liability.
Yeah.
It's about adapting our systems of governance to this new reality.
But how do we ensure that our approach to human oversight keeps up with the pace of AI? Because this technology is constantly evolving.
Yeah, that's where things like ongoing research and development into AI safety become so important.
Okay.
We got to constantly be looking for new ways to make sure that AI systems are aligned with our values and goals, even as they get more complex.
Right. We can't just assume that AI is going to naturally evolve in a way that benefits humanity.
Yeah, we need to be actively shaping its development, steering it in the right direction.
And that brings us to another important element, collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yeah, like, in what sense?
Well, the report is really clear on this point. No one country or organization can solve these challenges alone.
Right.
It's going to require global cooperation to effectively navigate the age of AI.
So we're talking about governments, industry leaders, researchers, even civil society all working together.
Yeah, exactly. Sharing research, setting international standards, working together to address the risks and the opportunities.
Right. But is that even realistic? I mean, there's so much geopolitical tension in the world right now.
It's a huge challenge, no doubt, but the report argues that the stakes are just too high not to cooperate.
Right. We're talking about potential existential threats. It's like a matter of collective self-preservation.
Yeah, if we don't work together, we all risk losing control, and that's a scenario no one wants.
So it's about creating a more level playing field, ensuring that everyone has a voice in shaping the future of AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because these decisions are going to impact everyone on the planet, no matter where you live or what your background is. It's about the future of humanity.
And that brings us to something that we've touched on throughout this whole conversation. The broader societal impact of AI.
Right.
Like, what are some of the big things we need to be thinking about there?
Well, the report raises a lot of important points. One of them is the potential for AI to worsen inequality.
Right.
If we're not careful, AI could end up, widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots, both within and between nations.
Right. So AI could end up concentrating wealth and power in the hands of a select few.
Yeah, and that could lead to all sorts of social and economic problems.
Right, even social unrest.
Exactly, and that's why the report emphasizes the need for, equitable access to AI education and training.
Right, so everyone has a chance to benefit from this technology.
Yeah, it's about making sure that AI doesn't just create a new elite, but that it actually licks everyone up.
And what about privacy? Like, with AI-powered surveillance becoming more and more sophisticated, how do we protect our fundamental rights in this digital age?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge. And the report really underscores the need for strong legal and ethical frameworks to govern how AI is used in surveillance.
Right. It's like we've always had to balance security and liberty.
Yeah.
But AI makes that balancing act so much more complex.
It really does. It allows for a level of surveillance and data collection that was unimaginable just a few years ago.
It's like having a million eyes watching our every move.
And drawing conclusions about us that we might not even be aware of.
Right. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations now.
Yes, before it's too late.
Before these technologies are so deeply embedded in our lives that it's too late to change course.
Right. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so we've talked about inequality, privacy. Right. What about the impact of AI on jobs?
Yeah, that's a big one. And the most obvious way that AI is changing the world of work is through automation.
right? Replacing human workers with machines. And that's been happening for centuries. But if it feels like AI is accelerating this trend.
Absolutely. And it's not just manual labor anymore. AI is increasingly capable of doing cognitive tasks, things that require, critical thinking and decision-making.
Right. So this raises all sorts of questions about the future of work, like what skills are even going to be valuable?
Yeah. And how do we prepare people for jobs that don't even exist yet?
It's a lot to wrap our heads around, so where do we even begin?
Well, the report suggests a few key steps. First, we need to invest in research to understand how AI is going to impact different sectors of the economy.
Okay.
Like which jobs are most at risk, which new jobs will be created, a data-driven approach rather than just speculating.
Right. And then we need to invest in education and training programs that will help people adapt to this new world of work.
Exactly. Give people the skills they need to thrive.
Right. So retraining opportunities, apprenticeships, promoting lifelong learning.
It's about empowering people to be active participants in the AI revolution, not just passive recipients of its consequences.
Okay. So practically speaking, how do we ensure that AI is used to enhance human capabilities and not just replace humans altogether?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one concern is that, AI could devalue human labor, create a society where people are seen as expendable,
right,
rather than, individuals with inherent worth.
So how do we avoid that?
Well, it starts with recognizing that work isn't just about earning a paycheck.
Right.
It gives people a sense of purpose, belonging, accomplishment.
Right. It's fundamental to our identity as human beings.
Exactly. And if AI takes over all the jobs, we risk losing more than just income. We risk losing a part of ourselves.
Right. So as we develop AI, we need to be thinking about not just the technical capabilities, but also the ethical implications, the societal impacts.
Absolutely. It's about the big picture, how AI is going to reshape our understanding of what it means to be human.
This has been a lot to take in. I mean, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive into superintelligence strategy, from the potential threats to the need for responsible innovation, global collaboration.
And the importance of, preparing our education systems, developing those cognitive defenses, thinking through the broader societal impacts.
Right, like the impact on our jobs, our privacy, our very understanding of what it means to be human.
And we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
Yeah, this is a conversation that I think we could continue for hours and hours.
Absolutely.
But for now, I think it's time to take a break and then come back for the final part of our deep dive where we can share some final thoughts.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into superintelligence strategy. And we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, the potential threats of AI, the need for responsible innovation, all this stuff. And it really feels like we're at this crossroads, in terms of where we go from here. Yeah, it really does feel like a pivotal moment. And as we've been talking about all these issues, around superintelligence, national security and everything, it's just become so clear to me that the decisions we make about AI, like right now, in the coming years, are going to have such a huge impact, not just on individual countries, but on the future of humanity as a whole.
Yeah, it's like we're standing at this fork in the road, right? And one path leads to this future where AI helps us solve all these problems, we've been struggling with. And then the other path leads to, AI becoming this existential threat.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it really highlights how important it is that we get this right.
Yeah, we can't just sort of stumble into the future and hope for the best.
Right. We need to be really intentional about how we approach AI.
So what does that look like? What can we actually do to make sure that AI is a force for good in the world?
Well, there's no easy answer. It's going to require a lot of different things. Technological innovation policy, changes, ethical frameworks, a real shift in how we think about AI.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Starting with technological innovation, what are some of the key areas that we need to be focusing on?
Well, AI safety research is absolutely crucial. We need to invest a lot more in figuring out how to build AI systems that are, reliable, aligned with our values, things like that.
So it's not just about making AI that's smart, it's about making AI that's safe.
Exactly. And that means, addressing things like bias in algorithms, preventing those unintended consequences, making sure that we can still control these systems.
Right, because we've seen, just how powerful AI can be, but like any powerful tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Exactly. And that's where government regulations come in. They have a responsibility to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
So we're talking about data privacy laws, AI ethics guidelines, maybe even some limits on certain types of research.
Yeah, all of that's on the table. And it's not about stifling innovation. It's about making sure that innovation benefits everyone.
Right. It's like with nuclear energy, it has the potential to be incredibly destructive, but also incredibly beneficial. It all depends on how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And that's where ethical frameworks come in.
Yeah.
We need to have these conversations about, what are the values? What are the principles that should be guiding AI development?
And that's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just the tech people.
Right. Philosophers, ethicists,
Yeah.
religious leaders, the public. Everyone needs to have a voice because this is going to impact all of us.
Right. If we're not careful, we just become passive consumers in a world that's increasingly shaped by algorithms.
We give up our agency and just accept whatever AI technology is thrown at us.
And that goes back to that idea of human oversight, making sure that humans are still in control.
Yeah. And one way to do that is to design AI systems with explainability in mind so we can actually understand how they're making decisions.
Right. No more black boxes.
Exactly. And if an AI system makes a mistake, we need to know who's accountable for that.
We can't just blame the algorithm.
Right. And all of this is going to require a pretty big shift in our mindset. For a long time, we've thought about AI as just a technical problem.
Right.
Something that can be solved with code and data. But it's so much bigger than that.
It's about our values, our ethics, our humanity.
Exactly. If we want to create a future where AI is a positive force, we need to start by looking at ourselves, examining our own beliefs about technology and progress.
It's like the real challenge of AI isn't the technology itself, it's us.
AI is a tool that we created. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It all depends on us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
The future of AI is not set in stone. It's something that we're creating right now with the decisions we make every day. So whether AI becomes our greatest ally or our biggest threat, well, that depends on us.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping this future. And that's what we've been trying to do here today, exploring these complex issues and hopefully giving our listeners the knowledge they need to participate in this really important conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks. We hope you found it insightful.
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.